Welcome to the Paranormal Experienced radio show with your host, Kat Hobson. We are here to learn all we can about every type of experience within the paranormal. There will be interviews with seasoned investigators of the spiritual realm, including ufologists, cryptozoologists, psychics, mediums, authors, and creators of technology, and others with credible knowledge to share. Together, we will find out what brought these investigators of the unknown into the field and learn what keeps them working so hard in it. I'm interested in learning how these individuals go about their work, and I believe you are too. This program is all about bringing those who are in the field together with our listeners who are interested in what they find. For us, the paranormal is all about working with and supporting each other. We're all here seeking answers to the questions that bother us so. Now, let's get those answers. And enjoy the show.
Good evening and welcome to Paranormal Experienced Radio. I'm Kat Hobson, your host, and I'm so glad you're joining us because this is going to be a fantastic conversation. I did want to let all of our people know we have two of our hosts that are up there in the frigid north, and I hope that everyone has someone to cuddle or a fantastic snuggly blanket with a hot tea or a hot chocolate, or pretty much anything else too, as long as it's warm and toasty and you're warm and toasty. We are down here shocked by the temperatures that y'all are experiencing because they don't even sound real. I can't believe how cold it is up there. Tonight, I am excited to welcome my friend, Alex Bob. He is a paranormal investigator, a cryptid investigator. He is an EVP specialist, and he is a local person to me. He lives right here in Alabama, and he is someone who I've investigated alongside a couple of times, and he's so mellow and so quiet that it's really kind of a surprise when you turn around and he's standing there beside you. It's really great because very few people are that quiet when they investigate, and I'm afraid that I'm one of them. So I am so glad to be able to say welcome to Paranormal Experienced, Alex. How are you?
Thank you, Kat. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on, and I too was surprised to hear about the weather up north. I hope everyone's staying warm as they can be. But thank you for having me on.
Well, thanks for being had, as it were. So,
of course.
You know, we've met a couple of times during investigations, and I really have been impressed by your work. I don't say that to people very much because, you know, we're working and I don't want to sound like I'm being, a schmuck by commenting on something that everybody's there is doing. But it's interesting to watch both of you work.
Oh, thank you so much. And I want to say too, you guys always let me come along and on y'all's investigations. I've learned so much from you guys as well, and invaluable information, and I've experienced a lot of awesome things on investigations with y'all, and I look forward to doing more in the future. And I always enjoy working together with other people because of that, because I'm an open-minded investigator, so I like to see how other people do things. I like to hear their theories and opinions, and add it to my bag of tricks, so to speak, when I go on an investigation. And you guys are with scare, like if I ever come across like a residential case or someone that greatly needs help, like you guys are the people who I would send them to.
Well, residentials are kind of my bag. I think they're the reason a lot of us who have gifts are given those gifts is to
Yeah.
be able to help people be comfortable in their home. But the others, the public events and the public locations too, are really good training areas. If you have a new piece of equipment or a new recorder you want to test out, those are great places to go for that. Where there's known activity.
Yeah, exactly. I I I love going to those places too for of course, the historic side, and then just the adventure of it all too is just something I really enjoy.
I know, right? I have been able to go to all kinds of neat and unusual places, and there's a lot more still on my list. What's your
Yeah.
favorite one that you visited?
Oh gosh. Well, recently one of my favorite locations, and I think it was a location that felt so different than many others I had been to, is the Madison Seminary up in Madison, Ohio.
Uh-huh.
Um, it was a place that I felt like, I'm pretty sensitive when it comes to feeling out places and things, but this place like hit me like a ton of bricks, which was one of the first times I've really felt it that strong. And I was having these experiences where I would like sense that something was in a room or someone was in a room, like a spirit or something, and then my friend would be in front of me and he would hear something in that room, and I'd be like, I literally just felt like something was in there. So I guess it like me and Madison really clicked well. The building like really like opened up to me, I guess, and I had felt like a strong connection to that place. And that's also where we were just filming or we did like a 2 night filming for this documentary we're working on. So it's definitely a special place if you haven't been there yet.
What type of a documentary?
It's called Madhouse, a paranormal documentary, and basically what we're doing with this documentary is it follows four friends. We had never really met each other except for on the internet. Like we had all came together through the paranormal community, and we went and met up and investigated Madison Seminary together. And it just kind of follows that whole trip and about everything that we experienced there. And I won't be able to say too much, of course, about what happened and everything, but just my friend Keith is editing the film, and he's really great at what he does. And I think it's going to really turn out amazing because he's working on it. And it's going to be a documentary more about the investigation itself. Like there's going to be some historical facts and things like that come into play, but we're definitely going to have it focusing mainly around the paranormal investigation, which should turn out really, really awesome, I think.
I think that sounds exciting. Who are the other people involved? Can you say?
Yeah. So we got J.P. Doyle. He does Just Paranormal. He has like YouTube and Facebook, and he's from Texas. We got Steve Brott, and he's from South Glen Falls Paranormal. I think it's Paranormal Society. They're from New York. And then Keith Campbell is Wake Paranormal TV, and he's from North Carolina. And so we all drove up to Ohio. JP had like a 20-hour drive. He came and picked me up in Alabama, and then we headed up to Ohio, which was still I think it was about 9 or 10 hours. So he got to split it up into a couple days, but we had this awesome journey up there, and then literally one of my favorite places I've ever been. Like I can't wait for everyone to see it in its full glory in the film if you haven't been there yet. We're also doing like a premiere and an investigation there on April 6th, because the film's coming out on April 20th.
Right.
And but we're doing a big premiere and investigation there that night. So anyone in that area that wants to come, if you just search for Madhouse, a paranormal documentary, you can find all the information about that on Facebook.
And if they check your page out, they'll find it too, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can. I usually post everything on either on my personal on Alex Bob page or on the Spectral Wolfpack page. I try to post everything everything that's going on all the different pages that people might go. But yeah. So that's probably my favorite place, Madison. I really like old hospitals as well, though.
Well, we did not get to do the one here in Birmingham together, but you've done it too, haven't you?
Oh yeah, yeah. Back when I forget the guy's name, I think his name was Bob. He had, I had talked to him about going in there, and he was like, "Yeah, you can go in. It's kind of an enter at your own risk situation with the way that hospital has turned into, because it's pretty much wide open." And
Well, it is.
so
It's completely open.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple ways in and out. It is dangerous in there too. So, they didn't really have a way of containing it. The people who run it now are a little trying to be more strict about it, but people are still going in there all the time. People live in there as well.
Yes, they do.
Also, I think from what I've experienced in there, I experienced some darker things in there. Feelings of dread, which I guess could be residual from it being a hospital and all the things that that happened to people who went there. But we also got this strange scent of sulfur that came up out of nowhere, and then it just kind of moved on. It was almost like it was following us for a little bit. And then just some of the things that I've caught in there, and some of the there's this one picture where you can almost see this figure. I can see it very clearly. Of course, you have pareidolia and people see things like in the pixelation and everything, but this one was just like pretty clear to me that it looked like some kind of weird. It almost looks like this little alien thing sitting in the background of Caraway when I was there. So it's like, I don't know what's there, but I think that possibly someone might have, like, kids go in there doing rituals and things, might have summoned something.
There is a lot of conjuring.
Exactly. That's one thing that I thought might have happened there because of that. But I can't say for sure, just from my own personal experiences. One night there, literally, I was coming out of the building because it sounded like wooden pallets were being, like, thrown by someone or something. The way it was following us down the stairs, like, it would be like we would go down a floor and it would be on that floor, and it would be this loud slam. So we thought, of course, people are trying to mess with us. We get outside, and all of a sudden on the whole other side, you know how there's like an alleyway that goes up in between the two large?
Yes.
On that other side, windows started just rattling on the one building, and I could never figure out, like, what caused that or like what was going on.
We had come in, we were down near the trauma center in that hallway that carries you around to the surgical suites. Mm-hmm. And we were coming back up toward the trauma center to go in from the back side of it. And those double doors that were chained shut at the end of that corridor just started going bananas.
Oh my God.
I was with Kim. Kim is like you. She does not get rattled.
Yeah.
But it was a little disconcerting. There was an awful lot that I got my first actual shadow in motion.
Oh wow. That's another thing.
It was, and it wasn't a human shape. It was like a morphing blob. Mm-hmm. And I saw it, and Kim, I think, saw it, but I stopped looking through my camera down that little walkway. And I said, would you shine your flashlight down here? And she did. And the first time it was there, and it just dropped down and went under the door on the left side of the hallway. And then I said, would you drop your light and do that again, please? And nothing. But when it started moving, you could hear her go, and we may both have done that. But yeah, that was my first time to ever actually get that on video. So that is a fantastic location. But you're right, there were actually there's actually a lot happening in that place. And I will agree with you that some of the things did not feel good.
Yeah. Yeah, like I remember when we were down in the lower floors, and I got an EVP on my, I was using the Sony ST25 recorder, and I got an EVP. I believe it said something about a demon, and I was with some friends who had never really done this stuff before, and they were just blown away by what they were hearing. And
did they run out the door?
Almost, because we started feeling that dread feeling, and I started feeling like similar to, and I know a lot of people don't like the Ouija board, but a similar feeling I get sometimes during a Ouija session, where you get this like strong anxiety and like I said, like a sense of dread or something really bad's about to happen, and it just like came over us, and then it kind of just, as we moved out of that area, it kind of just lifted.
Were you down on the floor that has that chamber?
That big hyperbaric chamber or something like that.
Hyperbaric chamber, yes. Were you
We
down
might
that
have
low?
been. I still haven't seen the chamber actually, so we might not have been down that low, because some of it recently has been flooded as well in the lower floors.
I don't think this is low enough to have flooded. This is, we were down there and by the bay doors, like where the trucks come in and stuff.
Oh, yeah. We probably walked right past it.
But there was something down there on that end that created that same sensation, and the doors were supposed to be locked, and they were, but someone had moved the hinges out of the, to the side of the door, so you could basically open it like a big door.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a set of stairs there going down to a lower level, and I just looked at Kim and I said, we could not go down those stairs, and we need to move from here.
Yeah.
And, that can be coming from a living human, too. Those sensations can stem from the living. But I think that's cool that you had some interesting and fairly similar experiences.
Yeah, I remember seeing, I saw a shadow, some type of shadow, like move across one of the hallways. And then one of the guys I was with, like I said, they had, they're urban explorers, but they have never really been too into the paranormal. So he saw something too, and it freaked him out because he saw some type of little shadow move around. And but yeah, that place that's another place that has like always had a draw to me for some reason. Like something's, it's a special place to me, but it's sad to see it, what it's became and the state of it.
Well, it's a special place to me because I was born there.
Wow.
So, yes, I was. And we won't go into how far back that was, which I don't care. It never bothers me. I told everybody I was 57 all year last year, and I wasn't. So I turned 57 this year, so I kind of got a do-over. But
Nice.
we are about to be going out to a break, and it'll be a 3-minute break. And when we come back, we will continue this because this is some great stuff. And Jason Emmerich from the Paranormal Den is in our Spreaker chat, and he said to tell you hello.
Oh, what's up, Jason?
So that being said, we will be back right after this.
Son of a...
Hey, son.
Mother...
Son? What are you doing?
Hey, Mom. I'm getting ready to listen to Periscope Uncensored.
By expanding your vocabulary.
Well, it is uncensored.
Son, the uncensored part of Periscope Uncensored is Jax and I getting down to brass tacks with all aspects of the paranormal. There's no fluff on our show.
So, no off-color commentary?
I didn't say that.
Awesome! What?
Son?
I just hit my head.
Oh boy, I'll go get you an ice pack. Catch Periscope Uncensored Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, only on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour. Sorry, folks. Just like that, we are back. And it was such an interesting conversation. I hated to leave it, Alex. We were talking about Caraway Hospital here.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it fascinating that we had such similar experiences there.
Yeah. Definitely interesting to me as well, because I think, I've talked to several different people about that place, but not too many people have actually investigated it like we have. There's some out there, but so it's interesting to see that we had similar experiences. Definitely. It's I would love to do it again with all of us. I know it's probably not possible, but we can maybe
well, there's
someday.
Safety in numbers for one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, because that's really the only thing that I would be concerned about would be actual safety getting in and going through. Because, like you said, people do live there.
Yeah,
But
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say the night we were there was like the coldest night of the year that year. And
Wow.
I did not want to be coming across somebody who was fearful that they were going to be accosted or something and them overreact when we came in a room. Or us overreact.
Exactly, yeah. Because, one thing that we found lots of little, I guess I'd call them like sound traps. Like it'd be like two cans tied on a doorknob. So if someone opened the door, it would rattle the cans and alert someone that someone was coming in there. We found, of course, sadly, like needles. Some of those could
Yeah.
have been from the hospital, of course. But you find all kinds of stuff like that. We found what looked like dried blood all over this shirt that was like
Oh.
stuck to the ground. That was kind of unsettling.
I could see that.
Bodily fluids thrown all over the wall, all kinds of weird stuff like that. But lots of trash too, where you could see where people had came in and kind of been living out of a certain place for a while. But
I know that we saw like a nicely set up bedroom, and we saw the linens. I mean, the beds were still made when we were there. They had the old school like Wang word processing units, and all of that stuff was still there. It blew me away.
Yeah, it's just insane to see hospitals after they do that, because usually they do leave so much behind. And like I've been to a few different hospitals around the country. Like one of my other favorites is called Old Reed up in Indiana, and similar thing. The hospital with this one they kind of packed up and moved just down the street into a newer location and just left the old one and left everything in it. And now it's just completely been vandalized, which was always sad to me to see. But I still, what I like to do too, another reason if I go into a place like that, is to document it and really see what it looks like and film it. And if something happens paranormal related, even better for what I'm trying to do. But that was another place that toward the lower levels, like the basement levels, I got a similar feeling of dread and everything. And I don't know. I mean, I know that the morgues are usually down in those lower spots, but I don't really know if that would have anything to do with that kind of feeling. I don't think it would. But I don't know. One thing about those places too, like at that place, the morgue was actually flooded and underwater, and people had tried to get these inflatable rafts down there, and you could see where.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was like, I don't know. I mean, I'll do some brave stuff, but actually going through the water to this morgue, I mean, I don't know, something about underwater is kind of scary to me.
Well, not only that, but there's no telling what kind of diseases were in that water, like diphtheria or typhoid.
Seriously.
Good heavens.
Nasty water. And then, what if you got like lost back in there or something, and you're like or your raft sinks and you have to swim out of there? Like all kinds of things could go wrong. Also structurally, I'm sure, who knows what, if you shifted something around, it might collapse on you, or, who knows. So that's one thing I probably wouldn't have done, would be to try to find, like once I saw the morgue was underwater, I was like, well, I'm not getting in the morgue. I'm just going to go somewhere else.
There's plenty of other places to see and investigate. Yes.
Exactly.
Have you found, though, that the spirits actually hang out in the morgue? Because I have not.
In the morgues that I have been in, like we did one for Jason in the chat, we did one up there at Edwin Shaw Hospital, and we didn't get much about the spirits that might have been there, but we got a lot about, like, there was this one session he had, and he could show you it. It literally just kept spitting out demon on the spirit box, like, over and over again. It was so weird. I mean, we didn't really have anything bad happen or anything, but we just kept saying that word. But like you said, though, I mean, I don't really know why they would want to hang out around the morgue. So I would think not as much, but.
Well, I know that I would want to go someplace that mattered to me.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, the only thing I could think, well, like with the graveyard or something, like if you wanted to come back and visit, like where your body was, or if you wanted to come back and visit, because your family comes there to visit you. But I don't really see the morgue having that same type of experience for that. But I don't know. I always do enjoy seeing the morgues, and if, like at Waverly Hills, I went and got in the body tray or whatever, and at Edwin Shaw I did that too, and so I think seeing it was cool, but I find I do get better things in other spots of the hospitals.
I think so too. But we have a question over in our Spreaker chat from Gwendolyn, who said, "What are some of the ghosts said to reside in the hospital in Ohio, the Old Reed Hospital?"
Hey, Gwen. So from what I've heard about Old Reed, it's kind of became like a local hotspot for like people to go drink and things like that. I couldn't find too much on the haunting said to reside there, but you just find people like saying, "Oh, even the cops are afraid to go in that place," and things like that. What I experienced there wasn't too much. Like I said, the basement area, I got that kind of sense of dread. I heard some things like sounded like something banging on metal or something like that. But other than that, like I haven't really found too much about that. Other than it's just a spooky place that people like to go and drink and everything. Now, at the Edwin Shaw Hospital, which is now demolished, at that place there was like an old tuberculosis hospital, and we had some really cool stuff happening there with like a rock getting thrown at us and things like that. But yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I've only actually seen a rock thrown once, and that was at an old bed and breakfast. It's really something when you see that.
Yeah. Anytime, I guess it would be considered poltergeist activity.
Yes.
Generally, from what I've experienced in my investigations, it's pretty rare, to see or to experience. But when it does happen, it'll definitely blow you away.
Yeah. Well, it did the young man it was thrown at. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
So, nothing like dodging your ghosts.
Yeah. Did I ever tell you, or did you ever see the video where I went to Old Bryce and had something either thrown twice, and I could never find out if there was a person there or not. But I was at Old Bryce, or Jemison Center is I believe like what people should call it, because the actual Bryce Hospital technically was Bryce Hospital before what they call Old Bryce. But there's the room with the smokestacks. Some people say that people were cremated in there. I don't think that's true. I think it was just like a furnace area. But I was in that room, and I'm by myself, and I say, if you can throw this rock back at me, please do so. And I throw the rock, and I'm just standing there, and you kind of hear like something like kind of shift or something, and then you just hear this loud slam on sounds like it came up from the roof.
Wow. And
so I jump, and like you said, I usually don't get shaken up or anything, but this made me jump. You can see it on the video. I jump, and I'm like, yo, because I thought someone was out there messing with me. And then it happens again, the same exact loud slam. And I go outside, and I searched around, and I stayed there for about 30 minutes. I went back in, nothing happened. I came out, I couldn't find any sign that people were there, but it had to be people, because it happened twice. I don't know. It was definitely one of those moments that just made me jump.
Well, it would just about have to. Seriously. I don't know what I would have reacted as if that had been something coming at me.
Totally unexpected. I remember someone commented on it, and they were like, why did that scare you so much or whatever? And then they re-commented later, and they were like, okay, I thought about it, and if I was alone in a place like that, like, I would have jumped too. I'm like, trust me, like, it was totally unexpected, like, real life jump scare.
Well, we've got Frank Lee in the WBHM chat saying that's paranormal overload.
Hey,
Yes,
Frank,
yes, it was.
Ooh, that's another thing that's coming up is the little conference in February 9th. That I think Frank's going to be there, and Kim, and
They both are, yes.
that's going to be a lot of fun.
You know, I found it odd because I've been doing this in Alabama for a long time. And Frank had too. And yeah, all of us have. And I was completely not familiar with that person. So I think that that's going to be interesting to see. Because there's not a lot of, there's so many of us. And I, of course, am not able to get there because, yikes. But the fact that somebody's putting something together like this is pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. I had never heard of him either. When I saw what was going on, when I saw that like Kim was going to be there and Frank and everyone, I was like, well, I know all these people, but I had never met. I guess his name's Dr. Graham, that's running it. So I still haven't met him. I've watched some of his videos and whatnot, but it'll definitely be interesting to see how it goes for first year event and everything. Sorry if you can hear dogs howling outside.
Well, I'm glad that you said that because normally it's my dogs. And I am not kidding. So
yeah, I apologize if you.
People are used to my dogs. I've had a running joke for 4.5 years with Kylie the Wonder Lab. So when she barks, the first person to comment gets her for a month.
My dogs that's my neighbor's dogs. My dogs probably joined in too, but they love to get in on any podcast or video that I'm doing. So
I think it's just wanting to be part of the pack, right?
Yeah, the wolf pack.
Exactly.
Yeah, we actually do a little howl every once in a while on the live streams and what.
Well, when you're sitting out there in the woods, there's no better time.
Oh, exactly.
Or, as far as timing and having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Just being one with the woods out there.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite places to be, honestly. And it's a place I feel very comfortable is out in the woods, even at night, which a lot of people don't. But
at night makes me a little nervous, but that's only because I had a possum sneak up behind me once, and they are not friendly. I don't care what anybody thinks. They do not make good pets, and they are not nice. So
yeah, I ran into one the other day, and he didn't look too happy to see me, but he kind of just was sitting up in the tree, and he just kind of turned his head away from me, like expecting me to just not see him. And I was like, "We're cool, man. We're cool." But yeah, my history with the woods is some cool stuff has happened. I got started going out in the woods a lot, of course, growing up and everything. But right when I graduated high school, I actually went out and attempted the Appalachian Trail. Since I had just graduated, it was a little late in the season. So by the time I got about halfway, it was already winter, and I had Walmart gear, so I had to come home.
Oh wow, definitely.
Yeah, I wouldn't have made it. But in 2014, I actually got to complete a full through hike of the Appalachian Trail. So, where some cryptid researchers, have a big background in like hunting and tracking, mine was a little bit different, which it was more of like long distance backpacking. I'm not a hunter myself. And I don't consider myself a hunter or a tracker by any means. I have learned from, some great people like Jonathan Odom and Ken Patterson. They have taught me a lot about tracking and things like that. But my background in being out in the woods was a little bit different. It was a long distance backpacking and being able to go out and just live with a backpack and go as far as I can. And so through that, I started to on the Appalachian Trail, I would actually read stories about different cryptids all along the East Coast. One of my favorites was the man-eating rock up in Glastonbury Mountain in Vermont, and things like that. So, I had never really heard too much about Bigfoot being in Alabama, and then I started looking into it more, and then I started finding more and more. And you can look online, and you won't find many sightings in Alabama. You'll find a decent amount, but the amount of sightings that aren't reported and aren't online is pretty insane. There's a lot of people that see, Bigfoot type creatures. They see what they call the Alabama white thing. Of course, there's stories about like the Wampus cats and big cats in general that are supposed to not be in Alabama. I've seen one of those myself up in Walker County. You have like the Walker County creature. There's a few little UFO, there's like one famous UFO story, but there are a lot of UFO sightings in Alabama. I know that's not cryptid related, but even I've had experiences with that. Well, exactly. Like,
we don't know what's interrelated through this stuff because you cannot get full information unless you're actually standing there when one is there. And there's all this talk about Bigfoot being interdimensional and then related to extraterrestrials, and
exactly.
there's a lot of questions relevant to that.
And that's one thing about me as a cryptid researcher. I'm very open-minded. Like I like to take a look at all the different angles. Some people are strictly flesh and blood. Some people are strictly what they call like the woo side or like the paranormal side. But I like to take it all in. And I mean, who's to say that they aren't both, flesh and blood and supernatural, or what we consider supernatural? Because, like you said, there's stories where UFO sightings are intertwined with Bigfoot sightings, and in one of John Keel's books, he actually has a story where someone actually saw a Bigfoot type creature getting on a UFO. So you have things like that. One of the experiences I'll tell you about that I had in Talladega National Forest.
Oh, well, I'm going to stop you because this sounds like it's going to be good, and we're at a break. And I don't want to miss a second, and I don't want you to have to stop in the middle of it either. So
sounds good.
This is only 2 minutes, and y'all come on back, and we're going to get this story because I know it's going to be awesome.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. And we are back. And Alex, you had a story, well, an experience that you were going to share with us. And I had to so rudely interrupt you, but what great timing.
Oh, it's fine, really. Yeah, I wouldn't want anyone to miss any of the story or, have to go into break in the middle of it.
Right.
So basically, Talladega National Forest, see, it's a pretty big forest, 400,000 acres, lots of awesome exploring to do in that place. There's some old cemeteries out there, even old spots where houses used to be, all kinds of different stuff going on. But, I like to go out sometimes just to relax. And at this point in time, this was about 3 years ago, I had gone out just to relax. Like, I literally had been doing a lot of filming for YouTube, like in the paranormal sense. I was like, I'm going out to the woods for 2 nights and just relax. So we get out to the woods. We had set up our tent and everything. We had our dog with us, which with my dog, he's had all kinds of experiences with me. Like, when things happen, he's like, I need to start bringing him more because things happen when he's around. So we were out there, and it was weird. This will play into the story later, but I'm going to go ahead and tell now what happened. I had been joking about that there was a witch that was out there, and I was like playing a joke on my friend who's with me, and I'm like, there's a witch that lived out here and everything, and I kind of like went off and like hid behind a tree, like, and I acted like I was going to get wood, and then we were just playing jokes like that, and then I would like wait for them to be looking for me, and then I would jump out or things like that. So
It's so lucky you came home.
Yeah, exactly. They could have out in the woods, who knows what they could have done. But so we get in the tent, we're just relaxing with the dog, and then the dog starts barking. And we look up and see these 2 little blue strobing lights. And they start flying toward our tent. And one of them flies and lands right beside the tent. And it like dims its light down. And I couldn't see it for a second. And then I noticed where it was, and I whispered. I was like, there it is. Because we were like, what are these things? So I whispered, there it is. And it like darts up and jumps off and flies, and they both flew away very quickly. And the way they flew, like, you could tell they were very precise with how they fly.
Wow.
So we're like blown away. We're like, what was that? Like, that was so weird. Well, anyway, after talking about it for a minute, we go back, lay down, start trying to go back to sleep, and the dog starts barking again, and we look up, and there was literally six or seven of these things hovering outside the tent. These blue strobing.
Oh my gosh, they went and got friends?
Yeah, and they like brought them back. And I remember feeling like almost this sense of like, I felt like this total calmness and like euphoric sense. It was really weird. Like, it literally almost felt like I was in a dream or something, but like I was literally sitting right there staring at these things. My dog's barking at them. My friend saw them too. We immediately packed up the next day and ran straight to the internet trying to figure out what kind of insects in Alabama have like a blue light like that. We couldn't find anything. We found something about these beetles that are bioluminescent, but it wasn't the same light we saw. It wasn't the same at all. Like, because I saw its wings too. It had wings, and they were like a translucent. It looked like butterfly mixed with dragonfly wings. So I have, we went up to Books, Beans, and Candles, which is like the local metaphysical shop, and we were asking Mitchell there, who runs the shop, like what he thought about it. And so, he brought up the Fae, and that maybe it was the Fae, and that they could come in all different kinds of.
That's what I was going to suggest. That I have friends who go to Ruffner Mountain for fairies.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never experienced that, but a lot of people haven't experienced a full body apparition either. Right?
Yeah.
So
Exactly, and so here's where it gets even more interesting. I hadn't even met Jonathan Odom at this point, but after I met Jonathan, we would be out. He would come out. I'd be out at Talladega. He'd come out, and we'd just talk sometimes, and just talk about different things we'd experienced in the forest. And one night he's telling me that these two ladies actually saw something similar. It was a red light, though, but something very similar. They called it fairies. And then he tells me that supposedly there's a lady who lived up there in the same area we were camping near. It's near High Falls, is what it's called. That they called like the fairy whisperer, and she was like some type of like green witch that lived out there. So I thought it was kind of weird that I had been joking about the witch, and that there were supposedly it was just like all this stuff, just synchronicities and things coming together. So then I started digging into the Fae of the southern United States, and seeing what I could find. And actually, I found some other people who had seen similar things, like the blue lights, which similar to a will-o-wisp. That has been described in history as part of the Fae realm.
yes.
And coming across these different sightings and people having strange encounters with little, like almost like little goblin or elf-like creatures, and little, what they call the little people. Finding out about the Native Americans having stories about them, and then starting to put the connections, and I've seen other people talk about it as well, just with those and the Bigfoot. They have to know about each other. If they're both they live in the woods. Some people even think that they're protectors of the woods and things like that.
Yes.
So it's just some really cool stuff to think about.
Well, it
especially,
is.
yeah, when you've seen it too. I mean, like I've seen it with my own eyes, so it's hard for me to not believe in it.
I agree, because I had an experience with Kim and some other people from our team, but Kim was the primary person who didn't know about elementals or about other things of that nature. And I still struggle with the Fae. I'm sorry. I try so hard. I'm afraid that I am going to need to experience that, because I want to. If they're there, I want to experience them. And I think that might be the primary reason I haven't yet.
Yeah.
But, when you talk about protectors, there's all kinds of protectors of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
So I know at break we were talking about elementals too.
Yeah, I mean, it made me wonder, like, if what I saw was some type of elemental creature, or what exactly it was. I still to this day am trying to figure it out, because like I can't say 100% like that was a fairy, because I don't know. I didn't have a body. I don't have any footage or anything of this happening, other than at this point the memories. Now, something else strange that happened out there was this. I went out alone at night, and I hiked out back behind the Pine Glen camp, and I had set my tent up in this little circle, and I woke up the next morning, and when I got out of my tent, I actually saw something up on the ridge that, to me, I can't say 100%, but it appeared to be a Bigfoot type creature. It had a strange fur color that was not a black bear. It was like a lighter like a lighter color than that. And whatever it was relatively tall. I would say at least 6 or 7 feet. And when it noticed that I was looking at it, it just quickly like ducked into the trees and was gone. And so, you have sightings of Bigfoot out there. You have sightings of the little people in the Fae. I've even heard stories about like large winged things being out there, which is something that has started to pop up in some of my investigations in different parts of Alabama. Some in Talladega area, some in the southern near Prattville, some up near Bankhead. So
Are these like Mothman type winged creatures?
Some of them were described like that. Others were described as almost being like a wolf or bear with wings, or even like what they would call like, yeah, exactly. Like I've seen people even describe it like that, as a griffin. One lady had a name for it. I can't remember exactly what the name was. I tried to look into it and I couldn't find anything on it. But like I said, these are some things that you can't just go find online. You have to kind of dig into the community and talk to locals and actually hear these stories from the locals, which is just insane. Because John Keel and he had talked about these certain areas that are like where the Mothman was in Point Pleasant. Like it's like some type of gateway or some type of just place where a lot of these things can come through. Almost where like dimensions, cross over each other or something like that. And there's like
it's like portals of some type or landing areas or something.
Exactly. And I'm like wondering, what creates that area, or because you'll have, even in Alabama, we have certain areas. I noticed around Tuscaloosa, near where the big mounds are. Mm-hmm. I noticed online I could find a lot of sightings of Bigfoot around Tuscaloosa County. And there's a little, if you go to the MUFON UFO map, I believe there was similar, UFO sightings around that area. Of course, in the cities you have a lot. So I don't know. It's just amazing to to think about and to start, once you start digging and start finding all these different connections. And but when I started hearing about the winged things, it took me back to a time where me and some friends went to Talladega, and we actually thought one of my friends saw it. I heard it. It sounded like a pterodactyl or something, like some type of like, it was probably just an owl, but something large flew over us. We were kind of doing like an afternoon leading into night hike up. There's like up that same High Creek trail. And, what we heard, we were like, was that a pterodactyl or something? And, my friend said he saw it and it was really big, but once again, I can't, it was dark. It could have been an owl. But yeah, the winged beings and creatures, it's pretty fascinating.
Well, they're freaky.
Yeah, exactly. And the one that the person saw in Prattville, they didn't even want to talk about it. They told my aunt about it and she told me about it. I asked them if they wanted to be interviewed. They said they didn't want to talk about it. It made them feel crazy to even think about it. And some bad things happened after they saw it with their family and everything. And it was very similar to Mothman in the description. The wingspan, the red eyes, the humanoid body shape. It's definitely spooky to think that, what if you saw something like that? It definitely shakes people to their core when they see that, because you're not supposed to see that.
Well, you've got all up in the Ohio, West Virginia area. You have the Mothman, you have the Flatwoods monster, you have, there's like 4 of them right there together.
Yeah, the Grafton.
It's just bizarre. Oh my gosh, we're almost to the top of the hour. I'm glad I looked up. I'm having so much fun with this conversation. It's just really, flying by. But we are about to break for our top of the hour news break. And you know what? For those of you freezing to death, I hope you've got a great bit of news coming your way. Because, oh my gosh, we feel for you. And we will be back on the flip side. This is a great time to stretch your legs, do a few cartwheels, as my friend Brian Parsons says. So y'all just enjoy the news. And like I said, maybe we'll get something a little good right there.
Support for this NPR podcast and the following message come from Microsoft. Brian Arakpo and Michael Griffin were teammates in the NFL, and now they own a cupcake shop. The new light and fast Surface Pro 6 helps them on the field and in the shop. Get more power and more speed with the new Surface Pro 6.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Jack Speer. At least 8 people have died in this week's snow and bitter cold weather that's hit the Midwest. Temperatures are still below zero in Minneapolis, Chicago, Milwaukee, and other cities, canceling thousands of flights and closing schools and businesses. NPR's David Shaper reports many cities are taking extra steps to help out their most vulnerable residents.
Here in Chicago, homeless people who will not go to a warming shelter may see the city bring a shelter to them in the form of CTA buses.
Those are mobile warming centers, and we will be moving around throughout the city so that homeless individuals who have not yet gone in hopefully will at least be willing to step on those buses and warm themselves up.
Chicago's Family and Support Services Commissioner Lisa Morrison-Butler.
There are folks that don't like to leave their belongings on the street, and so they want to stay close, and so the warming buses are something new and different that we're doing.
Similar outreach efforts are underway in other cities as a wind chill warning remains in effect through Thursday, and temperatures may stay below zero in some places until Friday. David Shaper, NPR News, Chicago.
The Trump administration's envoy on Venezuela says it's trying to find and freeze Venezuelan government assets around the world. As Michelle Kellerman reports, the U.S. is enlisting the help of the country's opposition leader, whom it recognizes as Venezuela's interim president.
The State Department's point person on Venezuela, Elliot Abrams, says the U.S. is looking at ways to ramp up humanitarian aid to a country that the U.S. says has been ravaged by a socialist regime.
The humanitarian corridor is something we are looking at, but of course it requires the cooperation of the regime. I don't know how practical that is. It hasn't been possible to date.
The U.S. has been trying to boost the prospects of interim President Juan Guaido. Abrams says he's trying to help Guaido's envoys find and seize Venezuelan government assets in order, he says, to pay for a humanitarian program. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, the State Department.
The Federal Reserve continues to say it will be patient in deciding any changes to interest rate policy going forward, a sign that after 4 rate hikes last year, Fed policymakers may be willing to take a breather. In its end-of-meeting statement today, the Fed said it's keeping the Fed funds rate, that's what member banks charge one another to borrow, at a range of between 2.25% and 2.5%. Chairman Jerome Powell says the Fed will remain vigilant, though.
The U.S. economy is in a good place, and we will continue to use our monetary policy tools to help keep it there.
The decision to hold interest rates steady on the part of the Fed was unanimous. Stronger than expected earnings from airplane builder Boeing and device maker Apple, coupled with the decision by the Fed to keep interest rates steady, sent Wall Street up sharply at day's end. The Dow gained 434 points to close at 25,014. The Nasdaq was up 154 points. The S&P 500 closed up 41 points today. You're listening to NPR. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell says he never considered overturning a controversial play during the NFC Championship game a week and a half ago. Goodell finally spoke publicly today about a botched call by officials that New Orleans Saints fans say denied their team a chance to play in this weekend's Super Bowl. More from NPR's Tom Goldman.
The commissioner finally spoke, but it won't make Saints fans much happier. At his pre-Super Bowl press conference, Roger Goodell said NFL rules don't give him the authority to order the Saints-LA Rams game replayed from the point when officials didn't call an obvious penalty against a Rams defender. Goodell said the penalty should have been called and added this.
We're going to make sure that we do everything possible to address the issues going forward and see if there are improvements that we can make through instant replay or anything else.
Goodell says historically there's been a lot of resistance to overturning no calls like the one in the Rams-Saints game. He says if the league fully evaluates possible changes and decides not to make any, he's comfortable with a status quo that's angered a lot of New Orleans fans. Tom Goldman, NPR News.
As the death toll continues to rise in the aftermath of a Brazilian dam collapse, an emergency spokesman there says it's still not clear when search efforts will be called off. Authorities said they've now identified 51 of the 84 victims found so far, though last word more than 276 others were still missing. The dam that was holding back mine waste gave way nearly a week ago. Officials are investigating the collapse and say criminal charges could result. Crude oil futures prices moved higher today, oil up 1.7% to end the session at $54.23 a barrel in New York. I'm Jack Spear, NPR News in Washington.
Support for this NPR podcast and the following message come from Lexus, the first ever Lexus UX crossover, available in hybrid all-wheel drive, inspired by architecture and shaped by street corners. The city-smart Lexus UX, crafted to conquer the new frontier. Experience amazing.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour. And we are back. Thank you so much for being here listening to Paranormal Experienced Radio. And I'm Kat Hobson, your host. And I am joined tonight by the most interesting person that I have talked to about cryptids in a while, as well as other stuff, because he's about everything unusual and a great researcher in almost all of it as far as I can tell. And that would be Alex Bob. So if you missed the first half, do not worry. You can go back. Our archives will be on iHeart, iTunes, Google Play, you name it. You can pick it up on Spreaker and go back and listen to that too. All you've got to do is go into any of those apps, search WBHM-DB, or just search Paranormal Experienced, and you'll find us. So it's worth it. If you missed that first half, you know you're going to have to go back. So, Alex, where are we going now? We were talking about the various cryptids, and we have so much fun when we're chatting in between during the breaks. So, we cover a lot of ground there too. What do you want to go to?
One thing I wanted to bring up about back on the cryptids, going into Ruffner Mountain, because you had mentioned that people go there to look for fairies. I thought it was cool. They had this sign there one day, and it said like, "What lives in the mines?" or something like, or like, "Do you know what lives in the mines?" or something like that. And so I started thinking, I'm like, well, what are they talking about? Like actual animals? Or are they talking about like Tommy knockers and like little people that are said to live in these mines and mess with miners? And then we started investigating around the area there and actually found some interesting footprints and things like that. So I actually reached out to Ruffner Mountain and I asked them about any Bigfoot sightings in the area. And, they came back to me a couple of days later and they said that they hadn't actually heard of any Bigfoot sightings, but they had heard of bear and mountain lion sightings, which was pretty interesting to hear, because they're not supposed to be around this area. But when you get into cryptids and cryptozoology, mountain lions is a pretty big topic because they do say that they're not supposed to be there.
Right.
Cryptid means hidden, or it's not something that's not supposed to be there, that's supposed to be extinct, and then people find out that it's very well still there. So it brought me back to a memory where I was at Bass Cemetery, which is back there behind Ruffner Mountain, and actually heard a similar, what sounded like a big cat scream.
And that's very distinctive.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually heard it back there near the cemetery. And like I said, I've seen one with my own eyes in Walker County. So I know they're still there, the mountain lions. With the bear, it could have been a bear, or it could, maybe someone did see a Bigfoot. Because what I've found in Alabama, there has been several stories of them actually being running on all fours, as well as being able to walk biped. So it's, recently one of the stories that someone told me was that up in North Alabama, someone had seen what appeared to be a white thing type creature which, I'd like to go into that too, and the different ones that people see and everything.
Me too.
But someone had seen it, and they thought it was a person because it was just walking bipedally, just like walking across like you or I would, and they like yelled at it. It didn't really pay any attention to the yell, so they shot up into the air, and all of a sudden it jumped down on all fours and just darted off and was gone.
Well, at least it ran away from them.
Yeah, exactly.
That could have gone south quick.
Yeah, because I'm not sure. Have you heard much about like the Dogman?
Yes.
Stories.
I'm familiar with Dogman.
When people talk about Dogman or even sometimes Bigfoot stories, some people are like genuinely afraid or think that these things, want to hurt them or something like that.
Well, they communicate telepathically is the primary.
That's what a lot of people say.
And they send off warnings. Like, I've been told of a group, experienced researchers, right? Experienced fortune researchers who were standing by their trucks. They were all armed, and a dogman came up and was walking by, and one of them was reaching for his weapon and froze because it was basically a, do you really want to die now kind of message. Not one of them took a shot. Not one of them lifted a weapon. And I know 2 of those men, and I trust both of them. And I also know that for them to be locked down like that, there was a good reason.
Yep.
So I do believe that they're dangerous.
Yeah, and one thing about them too, a lot of times with Dogman stories, you'll have, murder, cover-ups and mysteries that people talk about. You'll have stories about army people who have told about having to go kill these things.
Yes.
You have the different types of dogmen and the different, but usually, what I've found is that there's always some type of dark old magic or some type of thing like that going on with, because it's essentially what people would describe as like a werewolf, lycanthropy, and but then there's also stories about them coming from space as well. But like when you get into the white thing, the Alabama white thing specifically, because there are sightings of creatures similar and Bigfoots with white hair, in all different states. But the Alabama white thing has been blowing me away lately because of the difference in how they look. I've heard some people describe it as a Bigfoot with white hair. Some people describe it as like a big, almost like a lion type creature with bushy white hair. Others have said that it has like kangaroo legs and it has like a human or cat-like head, and it's like 7 feet tall. This one man, and I forget which part of Alabama this was in, but they call it the Slough thing there. I guess it lives down in the sloughs near the rivers, and but they said that his face, he described its face as looking similar to like a Joker's face. It has these big pronounced cheekbones and this big mouth, and said eyes the size of baseballs, and he said its hands were massive and that its fingernails were the size of silver dollars. And so you have all these different descriptions. So are people seeing the same thing or what? Because primarily it's up in northern Alabama, but we do have sightings. When you get down into Jefferson and even down near Montgomery, there's this one community where these people talk about the white things, and they say that they told me I could come down. There's a church there that they all go to. It's like a small town. Everyone knows each other, and there's elders at that church that have numerous stories about these things. And that's one thing I found when investigating the white thing, is when I go to these towns, there's elders and people who have been there, 90-year-old ladies who have who 100% believe in these things and have seen them and have experiences with them. Some people even tell stories about them coming right up to their house. And
wow.
So the white thing stuff has been one of my favorite cryptids and one of my favorite, cases that I've been working on and still actively to this day working on.
Well,
so
we have Gwen back in our Spreaker chat who says that she believes that she has seen a dogman in Ohio. So there's an eyewitness. But,
yeah.
I find it interesting that a small southern church community has all of these experiences to share.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
and
that's so bizarre.
And like I said, like you won't find this online. Like you can look and you'll find some sightings, and you'll find, there's the Alabama White Thing group on Facebook where a lot of people have came forward and said, I've had experiences with this or something like this. And now the thing that's got me is all the different places that people see these things. Now, one project I'm working on currently, and this probably won't be on my YouTube. It's something I'm putting a little more time and work into. It might turn into another documentary. Is investigating up in Lawrence County, a place called Chickenfoot. And with Chickenfoot, there's actual newspaper, documentations about people telling about the white thing and the ghost stories on Chickenfoot Mountain. So it's like, the more I'm digging, I'm finding newspaper articles and things like that, elders and people who just everyday people who are believing these things are terrified. The people around that area have been calling me up saying, they've been hearing these strange sounds every night, like babies crying and things like that. Which is another thing that John Keel talks about. The babies crying is kind of something that accompanies a lot of strange phenomena for some reason. And some people, I actually just watched, it's called Hellier. It's a new documentary series about these Kentucky goblins. And they had talked about in there how maybe that, if these were some type of elemental or something like that, or some type of fae, that they might have used that baby crying to like lure people in, because if you hear a baby crying, you're going to want to go make sure that the baby's okay.
Exactly.
Kind of like instinct. So I don't know if that's what's going on or what, but south of Lawrence County, or is where Bankhead Forest is, and like I said, there's all kinds of stories in there about Bigfoot and White Thing. And up in Florence, I had a sighting near this abandoned house. And the weird thing about that one was it was kind of near a neighborhood and everything. Like there was just out, just places where you wouldn't think something this big or that would be able to hide. So that's when you start having to wonder if it is something from another dimension or something that comes through. It's not just here all the time, because you'll have stories about footprints. You'll be following tracks and then it'll just stop and it'll just be gone. Like there'll be no more tracks. Or you'll find just one track in the mud and nothing else, and strange things like that. So it's hard to say, that's why all that I'm going to keep doing is continuing to try to capture footage of one of these things. Clear footage, too, is what I want.
Well, I understand that's as rare as hound's teeth, right?
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
I would love to see things. You had brought up Jonathan Odom earlier, and I think probably the clearest Bigfoot footage that I've seen in some time was from him. And it took me by surprise. And there's also someone else out there in that part of the world who I do not know. And somehow I ran across a video. I don't know if I was tagged in it because they just wanted to let me know they were out there or what the deal was. But it was a guy who was out in the field, and he was not far from a tree line. And on the other side of the fence and the tree line were several creatures.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not... Do you know who I'm talking about?
I'm not sure.
But I'll see if I can find that and I'll send it to you. But it took me by surprise because nobody ever sends me stuff like that,
Yeah.
And usually it's ufology or, spirits. But it was fascinating. I sat there and watched until he, left and was closing that video down. And then I went back and watched it again. But I was so busy watching them that I never saw the name that was attached to that. And that being said, we're at break. Good heavens. But we will be back. And thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoy these. And we'll catch you on the flip side in 3.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Son of a...
Hey, son.
Mother...
Son? What are you doing?
Hey, Mom. I'm getting ready to listen to Periscope Uncensored.
By expanding your vocabulary.
Well, it is uncensored.
Son, the uncensored part of Periscope Uncensored is Jax and I getting down to brass tacks with all aspects of the paranormal. There's no fluff on our show.
So, no off-color commentary?
I didn't say that.
Awesome!
Son?
I just hit my head.
Oh boy. I'll go get you an ice pack. Catch Periscope Uncensored Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, only on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour. And we are back, and we were in the middle of this fantastic discussion. I have just been having a great time. I'm going to get you the name of the person who sent me that video. I can't get to that link right now. But, I had always thought that Bigfoot lived in family units. And I know that in that video it looked like there were 2 juveniles. But it was just really, really interesting. So.
Yeah.
But I don't think I would have been walking calmly across a pasture with all these people sitting there looking at me.
Yeah, that's interesting. As far as the family units go, even with the white things, this one lady who lives up in Lawrence County has told me stories that she's seen the little ones, and the way that she describes the white things is similar to the way that people say, like, they kind of look like some weird kangaroo type creature, and that they have these like beady red eyes, and that she's seen the little ones, and that they have like long white hair that kind of covers up like most of their face and everything, but you can see these red eyes. And then I've heard lots of stories about people running into juveniles, or what you would assume is a juvenile, just a smaller, 4 or 5 feet tall Bigfoot, and with several of the people that told me stories, these smaller Bigfoots were like super surprised to be seen, and they would like cover up their face with their hands. They had like human like hands. Some things that I've experienced that I could say made me think that there was more than one around me would be things like we would hear one night. Jonathan Odom was with me this night. We had hiked out, and we actually heard this wood knock come from across the creek. And to us, we thought maybe it was trying to warn the others that we were coming. And when we were leaving that night, we heard a same knock from the same exact spot, as if it was saying they're leaving now or something. It's like really strange. So I think that they do have little, clans or packs, and they kind of have, what some people refer to as like a sentry or something out watching that can warn the others if someone's coming. In one of my favorite research areas, which is actually in Bessemer, Alabama, in Jefferson County, is where I've actually heard what they call the samurai chatter, which is like this vocalization that sounds similar to, like, they call it that because it sounds like two like samurais talking to each other, like this really guttural. It sounds not English. It's some type of, sounds like language. And I actually heard this with my own ears one night.
Wow.
And some people were on a live stream I was doing, and they could hear it too. And they said it sounded kind of like some type of native language. And
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and I could actually hear there was like these weird high-pitched sounds and these really low sounds, and it sounded like multiple things kind of like conversing. And I've heard it out there only twice now. The second time my camera didn't even pick it up. It was just far away enough to where I could hear it, but my camera wouldn't, like, you could barely hear anything. So that's another one of my goals, is trying to capture that clear audio, with my Tascam or something. Maybe I'll try and get a parabolic mic too to try to capture what I'm hearing, because when I heard it, it was blowing me away. Because, like you said, the original recordings of that was out in California, in the Sierra Mountains, where most people, when you think of Bigfoot, you think of the Pacific Northwest.
Well, Forrest did anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So, when I was hearing this, it was just blowing me away. And that's another thing too. When you think about Alabama, I looked into it a little bit. Supposedly it's about 70% coverage, the forest. So, that's a lot of places for things to be and things to hide. What I don't understand is how they seem to be in places where I would never expect to have an encounter, such as near Bessemer, which is near a city. I'm in this place that has several hundred acres, but it's so close to the city and things like that, I would never have expected it. And then I started hearing about other sightings in that area, things like dealing with a Native American connection, like where they've confiscated, or not confiscated, I guess excavated like mounds and things like that. Sightings around things like that. Over near like Alabama Adventure, where that park is, I've heard rumors that there's like this supposed native temple that's out there that people have seen, that's out in the woods still. I haven't found that, but people had sightings out there and said that there was Bigfoot out there. And what I have found is a lot of the native trail marker trees, which is like the trees that have been bent and they were once tied with some type of like cordage. And so in the middle, it'll be like a tree going straight up, and then it's like bent in the middle and goes straight across, and then it goes straight up the other side. You've probably seen them as well. But so, I don't know, maybe there is some type of connection to that as well. I know that the natives had different legends about, similar things to Sasquatch. Some of them were more like ogre type creatures. Like the Choctaw had the Champe, which is like the way that they describe it is just like this large, like man-eating, like ogre type creature that lived in caves.
Well, that would probably be giants.
Well, yeah, that too. You start getting into the giants, and there's just it's just so amazing how deep it goes, and like when you lift up one rock, you find something else under there that you need to start looking into. Because with the giant thing, there was actually a sighting of a Bigfoot near Chelsea that was said to have like red hair, like a reddish hair. When you start looking into giant lore and everything, you start finding stories about giants having red hair. And this thing was said to be about 12 or 13 feet tall, which
they're
massive.
finding giant arrowheads. The size that would be used for giants.
Mm-hmm.
And tools and weaponry of that nature, and bones.
Mm-hmm.
So, from North Carolina down, and that is pretty interesting. I recently had Mary Joyce from SkyshipsOvercashiers.com on with me, and she was reporting that this woman was just working in her garden and was digging up these like gigantic, I guess gigantic is a great word for that, right? Tools, arrowheads that they could have used for digging or weaponry.
Wow.
So, that's not that far. And if you consider that the Cherokee came through North Alabama on the Trail of Tears coming from that area, is it not possible that maybe the giants were coming to protect them?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
And, I don't either. And, who knows what, has been covered up, or what kind of like history we don't know about that's happened. I don't know. I mean, when you start getting into the cover-ups and everything, people say, well, why would the government want to cover up Bigfoot or anything like that? And, one reason I've heard a lot of people talk about is about the logging industry being completely shut down because of these things are real, and that's their habitat out in the woods and everything. And I thought that was interesting to think about, because there's like a story about this certain owl that in California that they found was not extinct, and then they had to shut down like a huge operation, that was making a ton of money. So you have things like that. And then I started noticing over near Alabama Adventure, where people are having sightings, that the logging people had started to come in and and I was like, that's interesting. I wonder, I know they're just doing their job and everything, but who knows? I would like to see, I love the forest and everything, so I'm definitely all about preserving those places. And I'm glad we at least have certain parks and things that can't be touched, but
until they want to.
Well, yeah, that too. But I mean, it's just some amazing stuff. And when you actually start, like I find it so interesting that people will come to me and they'll say, I've lived in Alabama for 25 years and I've never heard stories about this, so it's not real or something like that. And I'm like, well, I had to do a little digging myself, but once I did, I found that so many different people all over the state were having these different experiences and sightings with these things. And it's like, there's definitely something going on. And
well, it can't just be nothing. There's too many. And it's too diverse. Like, the kind of people who are seeing it are from all walks of life. The animals or creatures themselves don't vary that much in the description, especially the bipeds.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's just, it's like ghosts. You know, you don't have to believe in them. They'll educate you.
That's another thing. A lot of people that are, I've found that a lot of people that are super skeptical have, there's a lot of people that have been changed from having a sighting, and they'll tell you, they're like, I did not believe at all. I was like the most skeptical person, and then I saw this with my own eyes, saw something that that's not supposed to be real, and they either become obsessed with it and they want to research it, or it terrifies them and they don't want to talk about it. And like you said, I'm talking people like young people all the way up to people in a nursing home, elders, people who, and religious people, non-religious people, all different kinds of people have seen these things. Law enforcement, which, from what I have heard from people that were involved with law enforcement, that usually that kind of stuff, they don't like to talk about that kind of stuff. A lot of people might ridicule you or joke about it or make fun of you if you claim to have seen something like this. So that's another reason why you might not find much online, as opposed to actually going out and going to these small towns and meeting people and talking to people. That's where the best stories are, in my opinion.
Well, if you're in a small town and you're talking to someone, then if they were willing to come forward with that, they're already comfortable with it.
Yeah.
They're sure of what they experienced. Because small town living is tough living sometimes. Mm-hmm. So, people can really make a mockery of you. And Siri Paranormal said that the grandma lived in Coleman and Mobile and would tell them a lot of stories of Bigfoot and of the ghost of the woods. So, the elders are just really great sources, like you said.
Yep. Yeah, it's valuable to have them and to listen to their stories.
And they're so underrated, the elderly.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing better than sitting down and listening to an elder tell their stories, because they're just, they're just so amazing. You'll learn so much, and like I said, some of these towns, literally the elders have stories from the early 1900s and down, about these things, and it's just like it'll blow you away, especially when someone who hasn't heard of things like this, being in Alabama specifically, when really I've heard a lot of people say that Alabama is underrated for the amount of Bigfoot activity we actually have, and it's just, it doesn't get out there that much, really.
Well, I think that people here, like the elders, are highly underrated.
Yeah.
It's like, because we talk different, because we live different, because some of our history was rocky, to say the least, we're just kind of written off. And I know that I have actually met so many people like you that I know to be honest and trustworthy, great investigators, lots of good information to share. And yet, at all of these national conferences and stuff, very few people from here are invited. That's why I think it was such a nifty thing that there was a conference that y'all were, going to. I can't do it. I'm supposed to have a table and I can't do it. But I just think it's going to be an interesting thing, as some of the stuff, like you with your documentary, are just kind of exploding onto the fore, as it were.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people here who are doing things that are being noticed.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to be from New England or California or, wherever, to be an experienced investigator, to have the knowledge, to be able to create your own methodologies and tools, and to be able to gather excellent research and evidence. We do it too.
Exactly. Alabama, as a whole, I mean, I love Alabama. We've got so much wild stuff going on, with the paranormal, and like you said, so many great investigators and just incredibly intelligent people. Frank is such an awesome investigator,
Man.
Frank Lee.
Yes, he is.
And I've learned a lot from him as well, and it definitely needs to be it's needs to be on the map for the paranormal.
Well,
and I would like to see more historic locations be properly taken care of and preserved, which is something that I'm going to be working on over the next few years, at least acquiring one. I already live in a 116-year-old house that we are doing our best to, preserve and take care of, and there's some great ones out there, like Sloss Furnace and the Drish House, and that one that we went to up in Huntsville with Kim. I can't remember the name of it. The Lowry House. That was really cool. So, you have great investigators, great locations. Have you been to the Old Poly Jail?
I have not been down there.
That's another really cool spot in Union Springs.
Yes.
And the lady who runs that's super nice. And, but yeah, Alabama's definitely got, it definitely has the rocky past, like you said. But there's a lot of great people here too. A lot of great locations, beautiful, scenery. We have a little bit of everything, swamps and forests and smaller mountains, but we still have
beaches.
And beaches too. A little bit of everything.
We do. You start at the top and work your way down to you swimming. Yeah,
and when you go from the forest and you see something like a swamp, it's really cool to see it all in the same state, and then the different legends and lore that come with those different places. One of my favorite spots is Bear Creek Swamp down in Prattville, which has all kinds of stories. You got Bigfoot legends, you got stories about the waters having magical and medicinal properties, that the Native Americans that lived in the area, believed in that. And I was actually doing an ITC session with, I had my spirit box, and I had it hooked into the gateway device, which is the device I had at that library talk we had with Kim.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what the gateway is Eric from Epic Paranormal designed it. It's basically reverses everything that's coming through the spirit box, and it cleans it up a little bit with noise gate, and then it adds a little bit of reverb to it. And then it also adds a little bit of echo. And I was doing a session with that, and I asked about the waters being magical, and literally it says magical back to me, which was crazy. So I actually have a little bit of Bear Creek swamp water that I keep just in a glass bottle. I don't drink it or anything, of course, but I just keep it as a souvenir.
That's a great souvenir.
Yeah. And so, Alabama's just full of all kinds of great lore and history and mysteries as well that a lot of people, haven't heard of.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because we get to explore them all the time, and Sloss is free during the day.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that's when it's the most active. Frank even just put that in the chat room. Which, by the way, Frank's in chat. But, it's just, you can see the activity. I have footage of steps walking through, footsteps walking away from a camera I forgot I even had in there. Walking
Wow.
away from the camera through the puddles down in the tunnel.
Yeah.
So, and it was really obvious that it was foot, because you could see the motion of the foot going in the water and then the drips.
That's incredible.
And the drips did not come from high up, they came from low. So I'll have to find that. It's a camera I'd set up and just forgot about. And I was down on an investigation in South Alabama one night trying to hide from the locals because everybody knew the ghost hunters were coming, and that was kind of scary. They only had one traffic light, so it was, a big deal. But
Wow.
I holed up in the hotel room with my friend and was going through evidence, and there it was. And we are late for our break, and I'm running my mouth. So we'll be back in 2 minutes, guys. Just hang in there with us, and we'll see you soon. Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcast.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Well, I decided to cut that a little short and just do a station ID, and I'm going to apologize to everybody for my cold. I hope I'm not just really all nasally and icky. But we are back already. And Alex, I led you astray. I told you it was going to be 2 minutes. My bad. But we haven't even talked about your ITC work.
Yeah.
And you're so good at it.
Oh, thank you. I mean, everything that I, do with ITC, I've definitely taken from learning from a bunch of great investigators. Like you guys have showed me a lot of stuff. My friend Eric has showed me a lot, and he helped me build the gateway that I use. That is really awesome. It definitely helps. I mean, what I love about ITC is that there's so many different radios and different apps and different things you can use, and each one I've just had different experiences with each one, and depending on like the location I'm at, different radios might work better for the communication at different locations. So like I like to bring a little bit of everything, try different things out and see what happens. But what I've found is that when I'm holding a box, or if someone else is holding a box, it definitely helps with communication as opposed to just like turning a box on and sitting it down somewhere. And that's something that Tim Woolworth actually had told me about, and I actually tested it, and I found that a lot more was coming through when I was holding the box. And of course, more radio fragments and things can come through because your body acts as like an antenna as well. So when you're if you'll notice on some radios, or like even with old TV sets, when you would touch that antenna,
absolutely good. I didn't make that correlation.
Yeah, so you'll notice that with radios too. Certain radios, if you touch them, like I use the 12587 a lot. If you touch the antenna on that, you're going to be picking up more stations and whatnot. But also, I noticed that just the the responses I was getting and everything are just like sometimes will blow me away. Like one, for instance, I was at Bart Thrasher's gravesite, which is in Bibb County, and not a lot of people know about Bart Thrasher, but he was actually an outlaw back in the 1800s, late 1800s, and he was an Alabama infamous outlaw, and they actually called it Bloody Bibb back then, Bloody Bibb County, because it was kind of like an extension of the Wild West.
Oh wow, I'd never heard that.
Yeah, it's one of those little history bits that not a lot of people know about. But I was out there, and I actually got a response on there that said the law had shot me, and when I was digging around doing some research, I found out that he was actually shot by a semi-famous, not famous to like you or I, but in history, it was like a famous Alabama lawman. So, when you hear something like that, it really makes you wonder, because a lot of people can say, like it's just radio fragments or radio bits or pareidolia, or, you're hearing things. But that's why recording it as clear as possible and then reviewing it is super important. And when you're getting things like cuss words and things like that should not be on the radio, that's another reason. Yeah, and that's another reason why Eric added the reverse function into the gateway, is that it completely reverses the whole signal chain coming from the radio. So if you're getting forward clear, you shouldn't be getting anything forward and clear. If you listen to things in reverse, it's going to usually sound pretty strange. It's going to sound like it's reversed. Garbled. Yeah, I mean, of course, some things could come through that sound like forward clear words, but when you're getting like answers to your questions or people's names who were involved with the location you're at or things like that, it starts to, it blows me away still, from the first time I ever turned on a PSB7 and started, doing sessions then. But one of my favorites still to this day is, we were doing a session and asking about Post-Town Elementary School in Ohio, and I asked the spirit box, I said, if you're here from Post-Town, can you say Post-Town? And very clearly, and this was on a live stream as well, and people heard it, it very clearly comes back and just says Post-Town, and it's like, it's just like so amazing to me. Like I couldn't. It's just so clear and so direct, and it's very rare for me when that happens. Like when it's like a clear, direct, it says what you asked, or like.
I love when that happens though, because it just catches you.
Yeah, it's like it just makes me constantly wonder how, or what, or like what is that? What because it's not, of course, it's not going to happen every time you do it, but there are the times when it does, and it's one of those things, like when you get into science and everything, like doing an experiment and getting the same result every time you do an experiment. Well, with ITC and the paranormal in general, it's usually not going to be like that at all, which is just another thing that draws me to it more, is trying to figure out why this happens, or why at this time on this specific night. Like maybe it's something to do with the moon phase. I don't know. From what I've found, it's sometimes it can affect an investigation, but sometimes it doesn't. I mean, I've had really insane nights on new moon nights, and then there's been some new moon nights where nothing's happened. So I'm trying to figure out all these pieces to the puzzle as to what causes what. And
well, that's true, because there's places, locations vary. There's places where if there's a thunderstorm, that place is going to be rocking.
Yep.
Exactly. So everybody assumes that thunderstorms stir up activity. Well, a friend of mine owns a haunted jail, and if there's a thunderstorm, it goes flat.
Yeah.
You're not going to get, and that place is in constant motion. She keeps a portal running there, and when she's there, but they're always chatty.
Mm-hmm.
But if a thunderstorm comes through, it just flatlines, so to speak. And
yeah,
so different locations have different reactions to things.
Exactly. And even nights where, like you said, nights where it'll be crazy active, and nights where it'll be completely dead, and
as it were.
Yeah. And maybe nothing happens. And another thing I love is how just people's different experiences at locations as well. Like, someone might see a shadow figure, or someone might hear a disembodied voice, and just the different things that people do experience. and then, I don't want to get into this because we could go into this for another hour, of course, but like the idea about, like the PK, like that your mind causes some of these things to happen. Like if I throw a rock, like when I threw the rock at old Bryce, maybe my mind caused that rock to slam into the thing, or maybe, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but telekinesis is fairly rare, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
And I do know that poltergeistic activity, theoretically can be human-based.
Mm-hmm.
But...
yeah, but what are the, like you said, I mean, it's very
telekinesis is hard.
Rare. So, like, how, that's the thing about this. It's like, there's no way to, prove or disprove of what caused something like that to happen, at least that we haven't found yet. So it's like, I don't know. It's all just so deep and mind-blowing to think about.
Well, it is. And, there's so much that we don't know.
Yeah. Exactly. That's one thing I'll definitely always, consider myself a student.
Oh yeah.
And currently, one thing I got for Christmas is this old, all these. It's like a DVD, but it has all these old occult texts on it. All this stuff going into old mediumship and all kinds of stuff. And so I've been, reading through that and finding some interesting connections to, cases nowadays that I've been working on and things like that. So definitely always looking for trying to learn more about whatever I can involved with this kind of stuff.
Well, we have two things that we need to do before we go. And we've only got about 3 minutes. The first of which is that Joe wanted to know what you used to have the sexiest hair in the paranormal, and I told him that was a trade secret, and that Giorgio Tsoukalos is in a dire search to find that product. So we're not saying anything on the air.
Top secret.
And the other, I want you to tell people again how to find your big premiere and investigation, and also how to get in touch with you if they want to come and play.
Definitely. So I do have a website. It's still a work in progress, but if you go to spectralwolfpack.com, you can pretty much find all my pages from there. But if you search for Spectral Wolfpack Paranormal or on Facebook or YouTube, you can find it on there.
The YouTube is worth the visit, just saying.
Yeah, I've got tons of different videos on all kinds of different locations and things like that. Bigfoot Bob is my new Bigfoot channel, and I'm almost at 1,000 subs there. And when I hit 1,000 subs, I'll be doing a giveaway. So definitely subscribe to that if you haven't yet. And then Madhouse, a paranormal documentary, is our film that'll be coming out in April. And actually, this Friday, I believe at 5 Central, 6 Eastern, we're going to actually have our first trailer dropping from that. So you're definitely going to want to see that.
Definitely.
I've seen what Keith has, and it's an amazing trailer. It's going to hype everyone up for the film. And so search for Madhouse, the paranormal documentary. You can find that, and it's going to be great.
I'm excited to see it. And
it'll be on Amazon and everything like that. So.
Well, I'll be looking. So I can't wait. And, I'm really just so happy for you that project is coming out. I know people are going to respond well to it. And I just can't tell you enough how great I think this show has been, because you're such a good guest. And your information is so terrific.
Well,
thanks for being here.
And thanks so much for having me. I really had a great time.
Good. And with that being said, I just wanted to let everybody know that thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. We appreciate every one of you. Y'all are the reason we do these shows and bring you great guests like Alex. And Friday night is going to be a replay for the Ghost Talk Radio. It's supposed to be live, but there's an issue, and Shelley is going to be coming live the following week. Then Thursday night, tomorrow night, is going to be Periscope Uncensored, and that's a fantastic show. You're going to enjoy that. They come on from 9 till 11 Eastern, and they're interesting. You'll love it. That's one of our new shows that we've added. And then I will be back on Sunday night with Fate Mag Radio. So come and check us out. We've got all kinds of good things. Y'all take care now. Good night.